The laughter stopped her in her tracks. Not because it was loud, but because she recognized it. It was Briar's laugh. Breathless, high-pitched, and too familiar. Calla hadn't planned to stay long. She was there to drop off photos, simple, quick. She wore a sleek black dress, one that made her feel invisible but expensive. Camera bag slung across her shoulder, heels soft on the rooftop deck. But now, standing behind the velvet-draped partition, her breath caught. There was only one man who touched Briar like that. Soren. His hand rested casually on her waist. Not possessive, just certain. She felt like she'd stumbled into a play where she was no longer cast. No one saw her. Not yet. And that's what made it worse. Paris or Rome? Soren asked, handing her a small velvet box. She'd laughed, thinking he meant travel. Inside was a delicate gold necklace, the kind that caught light when you moved. The kind, he said, matched her skin. It wasn't about price. It was about the way he looked at her when he gave it. Like he'd chosen it for her and her alone. She wore it everywhere for 2 years. Until one day, the clasp broke and she tucked it away. Tonight, it gleamed on Briar's throat. Same chain. Same custom-made curve. Same quiet betrayal. She didn't step forward. Didn't say a word. Didn't blink. Instead, she turned around and walked back toward the service elevator. The glass railing blurred as she passed. Her eyes stayed dry. She refused to cry over a man who kissed her that morning, told her she smelled like cinnamon, then wrapped his arms around her best friend that night. This wasn't some random affair. This was curated, intentional, brazen. The worst part wasn't the cheating. It was how easy they made it look. How comfortable Briar had become with what wasn't hers. How Soren didn't even flinch when he touched her in public. The necklace? That was a message, whether they meant her to see it or not. Briar had texted her 3 times that morning. "You going to the rooftop thing tonight? He's been swamped lately, huh? Ugh, I need your man's tailor's number. He always looks so sharp," Calla had responded politely, briefly, uneasily. Something had been off for weeks. But this confirmed everything. Soren walked in around midnight. Loosened tie, smelled like champagne. "Hey," he said, brushing his lips against her forehead. "Sorry, long night." He poured himself a drink. Took off his watch. She watched him, every movement. Her hands stayed folded on her lap. "I thought you weren't going," he said. "You feeling okay?" She nodded. "Just tired." He smiled. "Let's get away soon. You've been quiet lately." She blinked once. He had no idea she'd seen it. She felt sick and powerful at the same time. She didn't search his phone, didn't stalk Briar's page. She simply opened her app like usual, scrolling through stories as she sipped her tea. Then she stopped. Briar had posted something late, a blurry photo, dim lighting. Briar's face hidden in his chest, his wrist visible, the tattoo clear. Their matching ink from Paris. Still us. The caption, "The best nights are stolen." And there it was. Not suspicion, not jealousy. Proof. She didn't scream, didn't sob. She pressed one name. Astrid Bannock, her mother-in-law. The woman who wore power like perfume and never picked up on the first ring. "Today," she answered immediately. "Calla?" Calla's voice didn't shake. "Can we meet?" Silence. Then, "Tell me where." She pulled on a grey trench coat. Clean lines, hair pulled back, a nude gloss, minimal perfume. Not for drama, for clarity, because when someone ruins your life in a gown and gold, you don't show up looking shattered. You show up looking like you already made the next move. What if the person betraying you smiled in your face every day? Have you ever felt a shift in your gut before you saw the truth? Do you remember the exact moment your heart broke, not from pain but from realization? Calla just saw what many women fear, betrayal by 2 people she trusted most. If you've ever had to stay silent in a moment that shattered you, share or drop a comment below. Subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, because what comes next isn't what he expected. The private club smelled like cedar and old money. White walls, gold sconces, silence that tasted like power. Calla sat alone at a two-top near the back, legs crossed, fingers still. Astrid arrived on time, not a minute early, not a second late. That was her way. Her heels clicked against the floor in a measured rhythm. Tailored navy suit, diamond studs, a white silk blouse. Her presence demanded nothing, yet it filled the room. She sat, looked at Calla, poured her own tea. Tell me, Calla didn't start with the party. She started with the shift, the late nights, the sudden coldness, the way Briar began asking strange questions, the texts, the necklace. Astrid didn't interrupt, didn't blink. Calla ended with the photo, and the tattoo, and the caption. When she finished, Astrid's expression hadn't changed, but something in her had frozen. "He wore that watch to my birthday dinner," Astrid said, finally. "That night, I gave him the partnership documents." Silence again. Calla waited for judgment. Astrid picked up her teacup. "He's a fool." Calla's eyes narrowed slightly. "And she's an idiot," Astrid added. "You're not defending him?" Calla asked, genuinely unsure. Astrid's eyes met hers. "I raised him to be better. He chose worse." That should have felt like victory, but it didn't. Because this wasn't about winning. It was about surviving something you didn't ask for. Astrid leaned in slightly. "You stay. For now. You hold your head high. You don't run. I'm not staying for him." "Good." She sat back. "Then stay for yourself." The next day, Soren's startup venture, his personal project outside of Bannock Corp, lost half its silent investors. No media coverage, no legal mess, just gone. Astrid didn't sign any documents. She didn't need to. Calla moved into the penthouse 2 days later. It wasn't unfamiliar. Astrid had used it years ago for business guests, but this time she left it to Calla, no questions asked. The view was pure Chicago skyline. The windows were floor to ceiling. The walls were stark. The space cold but clean. She unpacked one bag. Then she went to the gallery and worked. She didn't cry, not once. But she didn't sleep well either. Some nights she heard the echo of Briar's laugh, saw that necklace gleam under rooftop lights. Some mornings she stared at her reflection and tried to remember who she was before she married into the Bannock name. She wasn't angry, not yet. She was just empty. Soren texted her 3 times. "Hey, where are you? You didn't come home. Everything okay? Calla, talk to me." She didn't answer. She saw Briar once, at a charity brunch downtown. Briar arrived wearing pale pink. She looked surprised to see Calla, but Calla didn't stop walking. She didn't even glance. Briar looked like a woman trying to remember how to stand. Calla didn't break her stride. Astrid came to dinner the following Thursday. No house staff, no wine, just the 2 of them and Chinese takeout on real plates. "Why'd you come?" Calla asked halfway through the meal. Astrid cracked open a fortune cookie. "Because when I found out my husband cheated, no one did." Calla blinked. "You?" Astrid nodded once. "He had a second apartment for 4 years. I found out after our daughter's graduation." "What did you do?" I laughed. "Filed papers. Took the apartment. Sold it a week later." Calla tried not to smile. Why the laughter? Because when a man thinks you'll fall apart and you don't, it scares him more than rage ever could. Calla stared at her plate. "I didn't know. You weren't supposed to. I don't lead with my pain." That night, they didn't talk about Soren again. They talked about art, childhood, weather, French movies. It was the first time Calla laughed in weeks. Astrid's face softened. "You have more spine than most women in this family. Never lose it." Calla held onto those words like armor. 2 weeks later, Calla showed her work at a private auction for one of Chicago's elite art charities. The press invited her. The gallery mentioned her name in whispers. Soren was there, alone. He tried to corner her backstage. "Calla, don't." I messed up. She tilted her head. You think? He lowered his voice. Briar, it was stupid. A mistake. It's over. She looked him dead in the eye. It was never about her. What was it about then? You forgot who I am. He looked stunned, like he hadn't realized she'd remembered too. She walked away. Calder was the last person she expected to notice her that night. He was a venture capital partner who had backed two of the artists showing their work. Tall, kind eyes, clean watch, the type of man who didn't hover, didn't interrupt, didn't boast. He found her packing up her camera. You okay carrying that alone? He asked. She nodded. I've done it before. He smiled. I bet you have. She looked up. You always this observant. Only when it matters. He didn't flirt. He didn't push. He simply said, you deserve to feel safe again, then walked her to her car. No promises, no questions, just presence. And somehow, that made her feel seen again. The next morning, Calla stood at the window of her new penthouse and watched the clouds roll over Lake Michigan. She didn't open the curtains all the way. She liked the light to feel earned. Below, the city moved like nothing happened. Cabs honked. Business people rushed into tall buildings. Tourists posed for pictures under mirrored sculptures. Normal life. But inside her, nothing was normal. She hadn't been back to their marital penthouse in 5 days. Soren didn't know where she was. That was intentional. Astrid knew. Astrid had the key. Astrid had sent the flowers, the fridge full of food, and the lawyer's card tucked into a pale grey envelope, sealed with a wax bee. It wasn't a threat. It was an invitation to take her power back. Calla hadn't called the lawyer. Not yet. She needed one more conversation. Astrid chose the venue again. Not the club this time. A rooftop garden bar in Lincoln Park. Mid-morning. Cool breeze. Fewer eyes. Calla arrived early. She didn't want to be walked in on. The hostess led her to a corner table wrapped in ivy. The sunlight kissed the rim of her coffee cup. Astrid arrived 10 minutes later. No makeup, but flawless. Olive trench coat, black silk blouse, sleek grey slacks. A woman who didn't need decoration to look expensive. She sat and said nothing for a full minute. Then, he's calling my assistant now. Like that will fix this. Calla raised an eyebrow. I haven't answered him either. Astrid poured herself water. Good. They didn't talk for a while. Just sat. Listened to the wind, the clatter of distant cutlery. Finally, Calla asked, what was he like before I met him? Astrid blinked. Soren? Yes. Ambitious, polished, always wanted to be the smartest man in the room. She paused, but when he was younger, he listened more. You brought that back for a while. Calla nodded slowly. So it faded before. Most things do, Astrid said. That's not on you. Calla stared at her hands. He kissed me the same day he was with her. Same smile. Same forehead kiss. Astrid exhaled. He thinks loyalty is optional when no one's looking. And Briar? Astrid's voice dropped an octave. I never liked her. You never said. I didn't need to. You're smart. She was my best friend. No, Astrid said firmly. She was your mirror. You were the one with the husband, the name, the light. She borrowed it every time she sat beside you. Calla didn't reply. She didn't have to. Back at the penthouse, Calla opened the grey envelope. Inside, a crisp white card. 3 names. All attorneys. Discreet. Experienced in high-asset dissolutions. One was already familiar. Astrid had used him once, years ago. Calla didn't call him. She tucked the card into a drawer. Not yet. The next morning, a knock. Not a buzz. Not the doorbell. A physical knock, like someone trying not to be obvious. Calla opened it slowly. Soren. He didn't look powerful. He looked tired. He hadn't shaved. His tie was crooked. His eyes were too bright, like he'd either been drinking or hadn't slept. Can I come in? She stepped aside. He entered. Slowly. Looked around the place like it was unfamiliar. This is Mom's? Calla nodded. He gave a bitter chuckle. Of course. She crossed her arms. What do you want? I wanted to see you. You're seeing me. Not like this. She stayed silent. He took a step closer. Briar meant nothing. It wasn't serious. She blinked once. I know you saw the photo. Still silent. He tried again. We were having problems. No, she said. You were bored. He froze. She walked past him toward the windows. You wanted excitement, not intimacy. You didn't even check if I was at that party. I didn't think. Exactly. He walked toward her slowly. Calla. I want to fix this. You can't. We've been through worse. No, Soren. You've put me through worse. Silence. He looked around again. You told my mother. She saw what you didn't. His jaw tightened. She pulled out of Novatek. Good. She's sabotaging me. Calla turned to him fully. You sabotaged yourself. He looked like he wanted to say something cruel, then thought better of it. Instead, he walked to the door. Paused. I'm still your husband. For now, she said. Then shut the door behind him. That night, Astrid texted her a single line. Good. No punctuation. No added weight. Just a verdict. The next day, Calla went to the gallery. She didn't tell anyone. She slipped in early before clients arrived. She touched the canvases she'd helped hang. Adjusted light. Took a slow breath in the quiet. Then she saw the white card again, one of the attorneys. This time, she didn't tuck it away. She called. The law office didn't look like much from the outside. Just glass, concrete, a nameplate that could have belonged to any finance firm in the city. But inside, quiet corridors, closed doors, carpet that muted footsteps. Calla didn't bring an assistant, didn't wear her wedding ring. She dressed in tailored slate blue slacks and a soft cream blouse. No mascara, clear lips, no armor, just presence. The receptionist led her to the 10th floor. The man she met, Alec Thorne, wasn't flashy, balding, soft-spoken, wore a wool tie and wire glasses. His handshake was brief. She sat. He opened a folder. Mrs. Bannock. Calla. He nodded. Calla. Your mother-in-law mentioned you might call. Calla tilted her head. She already retained you. Yes. Years ago. And again recently. I don't represent Soren. I won't speak to him. Good. He leaned back. Before we begin, are you seeking dissolution, legal separation, or initial advisement? Calla took a breath. I want options. He smiled faintly. Then we'll start there. The meeting lasted an hour. No drama, no lectures. Just quiet math, asset portfolios, and potential routes, joint filings, confidential proceedings, public strategy if needed. He explained what she already suspected. Her prenup leaned in her favor. Astrid had seen to that. She left with a folder, slim, neat, unassuming. The weight wasn't in the paper. It was in what it meant. She could leave, completely, without a fight, if she chose to. That night, she sat in the penthouse's reading room with a blanket draped over her knees. No music, no wine, just her and the folder, and the realization that Soren had already lost her. He just didn't know it yet. Astrid came the next evening. Calla didn't cook. She didn't apologize. They ate in silence for the first 15 minutes. Then Astrid said, Did you meet with Thorne? Calla nodded. He's good. He's surgical. Calla stirred her tea. I haven't signed anything. You don't need to rush. I don't want revenge. Good. Revenge wastes time. You want distance and clarity. Calla looked at her. I want peace. Astrid reached across the table, laid her hand gently on Calla's. You'll have it. The following week, Soren sent a letter, not an email. An actual letter, 3 pages, handwritten, smudged ink. He wrote about the first time they met, their trip to Iceland, the way she fell asleep in the back seat on road trips, how she took pictures of random strangers just to remember emotions. It wasn't desperate. It was careful, measured. It read like a man trying to rewrite his own ending. Calla read it once, then again. She didn't cry, but she did feel something. Pity. Later that week, a florist delivered peonies to the gallery. Her favorites. The note wasn't signed, but she knew. The florist said the sender had them flown in. She handed them to a passing assistant. Give them to the lobby, or toss them. Calder texted her 2 days later. Not flirty. Just, I'm speaking at the Visual Equity panel Thursday. If you're attending, I'd like to say hello. If not, I'll just admire your work from across the city. She smiled at the screen. Typed, deleted, then finally sent, I'll be there. No heels this time. The panel was quiet, intimate. 40 people in a converted brick warehouse in River North. Calla sat in the second row, not center, not front. Calder spotted her immediately. His presentation was smooth, thoughtful. He spoke about investment in creative work, sustainable funding for minority-owned galleries, and valuing art that tells emotional truth. He didn't once glance her way after that first nod. But when the event ended, he walked over. Grey sneakers? He asked. Elevator broke. He laughed. You always bring quiet drama to a room. She raised an eyebrow. Is that an insult? No, he said. That's me saying, I notice. They talked near the exit for 20 minutes. No one interrupted. He never asked about Soren. Never asked what she wanted next. He simply asked, Have you taken any pictures lately? She paused. No. Just been surviving. Start again. That night, Calla took her camera out of its case, charged the battery, polished the lens. She didn't plan to shoot. Not yet. But she placed it by her window. Ready. 2 days later, she signed the divorce papers. Quietly. Privately. No announcement. No dramatic call. She handed the file to Thorne, shook his hand, and walked out into the cold. The first thing she bought afterward was a thick, leather-bound journal. On the first page she wrote, I left softly, but I left. What if the one person you trusted most broke you quietly, and you chose to leave even quieter? Have you ever realized someone no longer saw your worth, and instead of fighting, you walked away? Calla didn't scream. She didn't beg. She signed, she breathed, and she chose herself. If you believe quiet exits carry the loudest power, share this video, like it, comment She Rose Anyway, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories. For every woman who didn't shatter when they expected her to, the days after signing felt different, not lighter, not happier, but still, like standing in a room after a storm passed. No damage, no wreckage, just silence, and your own breathing. Calla woke up that first morning and didn't reach for her phone. She made tea, ate toast, stared at the city and felt no obligation to smile. The penthouse was too quiet now. She started leaving the windows cracked, just enough to let city sounds in. Sirens, street cleaners, birds that nested on the neighboring terrace. Anything was better than the echo of her own thoughts. The gallery called her back in, not for work, not for photos. The curator, a soft-spoken woman named Nell, had been following Calla's personal projects online. We'd like to do a soft feature, she said. A small showing, something subtle. Calla hadn't shot anything in weeks. She nearly declined. Then Nell added, it's called After. For artists who've crossed something personal and made it through. That word stayed with her all the way home. She picked up the camera that night, not to photograph pain, but to start noticing again. She walked 3 blocks from the penthouse, then another 5. She snapped storefronts, graffiti, a woman with red braids smiling at her phone, a child skipping over a puddle. Nothing profound, just life moving forward. She printed a few shots, pinned them to a corkboard and stared. No names, no captions, just little pieces of survival. Astrid visited again on a Sunday. She brought pastries this time. No lecture, No questions. Just boxes and tissue paper. Calla tilted her head. What's this? Dresses, suits, belongings. I sent staff to your old closet. You'll decide what stays. Calla opened the first box. A red silk dress from Milan. Still smelled like their honeymoon. She looked at it for a while, then folded it, placed it in a donate pile. Astrid sipped tea, didn't comment, until Calla paused at a photo. It was framed, her and Soren, smiling at a company gala. Her hand rested on his chest, his eyes half-lidded with drink. Astrid took it from her gently. I'll have this destroyed. Calla didn't argue. She just said, thank you. Later, they sat near the fireplace. Astrid asked, have you told your parents? No. Why? They always liked him. Astrid tilted her head. They liked what he looked like. Calla nodded. Exactly. Astrid stirred her tea. You don't owe them proof. The following Monday, Calla submitted 5 photos to Nell. No fanfare. No deep explanation. Nell's response was instant. These breathe, they ache, but they're alive. Thank you. That same week, Calder messaged again. I'll be in Lake Forest Thursday, meeting with a non-profit board. Want to come? She thought about it. She wasn't sure if she was ready for soft company in daylight, but something about the way he asked didn't feel invasive. She said yes. The drive up north was quiet. Tree-lined roads, old money estates wrapped in ivy. They didn't talk much at first. Then he asked, what was the last thing you did just for yourself? She thought hard. Finally, a photo walk. Last week. Before that. She paused. I don't know. He nodded. We forget, don't we? She looked out the window. Especially when we're trying to hold everyone else up. He pulled into the driveway of a long brick building. Community center turned art space. Calla didn't realize her hands were shaking until he gently touched her wrist. Breathe. They toured the building. Kids were painting. A teacher read poetry in a corner. Light filtered in through dusty skylights. Calder introduced her to 3 board members. Didn't once say her last name. Didn't mention her ex-husband. Didn't try to impress. Just, this is Calla. She's an artist. She stood a little taller. On the way back, he stopped for coffee. Didn't ask if she wanted any. Just brought her exactly how she liked it. 2 sugars. Almond milk. No lid. She looked at the cup, then at him. You remembered? You mentioned it once at the fundraiser. Calla stared out the window again, this time quieter. When she got home, she found the last of her things had arrived from the old penthouse. A final box. Inside, her wedding photo album. Calla didn't even open it. She set it down on the floor, wrapped it in an old towel, and dropped it gently in the trash chute. No fire, no rage. Just done. The gallery launched the After series on a Wednesday. No billboards, no speeches, no velvet ropes. Just white walls, soft lighting, and photos hung low enough for children to see. Calla's section sat in a corner near the back. 5 black and white images, no captions, but each one held stillness. A story half told. A moment, mid-heel. People stopped longer than she expected. Some tilted their heads. Some stepped closer. A few wiped their eyes. Nell came by with a clipboard and a quiet smile. Yours are the only ones people whisper in front of. Calla chuckled. That good or bad? Whispering means respect. Later that evening, a woman in a navy blazer approached her. You're Calla Verne? Calla nodded. I saw your work last year. That Skyline series. This feels different. Calla smiled softly. So am I. The woman placed a card in her hand. We're doing a residency next spring. 4 weeks in upstate New York. Artists, writers, no phones, just creation. I'd love for you to apply. Calla blinked. You're serious? I am. You see more than shapes. You see aftermath. When she got home, she left the card on her nightstand. She didn't know if she was ready to leave the city, but the idea of going somewhere where no one knew her husband's name, that felt like oxygen. The next afternoon, She walked the lakeside path near Belmont Harbor, camera in hand, fingers relaxed. She didn't plan her shots. She didn't adjust the light. She just moved, clicked. Let the world speak first. Soren texted again that evening, saw the gallery post. You looked beautiful. She didn't reply. He sent another. Didn't realize how much I missed watching you do what you love. She powered off the phone. Astrid called instead. I saw the post too, she said. You didn't show up. Kalle teased. I've never been one for soft launches. They shared a small laugh. Then Astrid said, You looked like yourself. Kalle paused. What does that mean? Before you were a Bannock, before the necklace, before the parties. That girl. She's back. Kalle blinked fast. I'm not her anymore. No, Astrid said. You're more. Calder messaged again that weekend. Walking Millennium Park. Just past 2 kids with cameras and backpacks. Thought of you, she replied. Hope they shoot better than I did at their age. Unlikely. Cocky. Observant. They met at a quiet bookshop that Sunday. Coffee in hand, jackets open, laughter softer than before. She didn't lean in. He didn't reach. But there was something steady between them. She mentioned the residency offer. He said, Do it. No hesitation. Only fools hesitate when life hands them breathing room. She studied him. You always speak in quotes. Only when the words matter. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But the space between their shoulders didn't feel empty anymore. That night, Kalle looked at herself in the mirror. Really looked. Her eyes were less sharp, but more sure. The kind of clarity that doesn't come from vengeance, but from restoration. She opened the top drawer of her closet. The necklace was still there, the original one, the one he gave her in Paris. She held it in her palm for a while. Then she walked to the balcony, unclasped it. Let the wind take it, not as a symbol, not as revenge, just release. The invitation arrived in a cream envelope. No name on the return address. Inside, a heavy cardstock, engraved in gold. The Stoneview fundraiser. Black tie, benefiting women in transitional housing. Her name was printed alone. No +1. No mention of Soren. She stared at it for a long time. Not because she wasn't used to these events, but because this was the first time she was invited without being part of the Bannocks. Just Kalle Verne. She said yes, not because she needed to be seen, but because she refused to disappear. The night of the event, she wore a dark emerald satin gown. Sleek, no jewelry, no shimmer. Her hair fell in soft curls. Her heels made no sound. She arrived alone, and heads turned. Some smiled in sympathy. Some whispered, but none of them turned away, because Kalle didn't enter the room like a woman recovering. She entered like a woman who had already rebuilt. The venue was a refurbished museum, all glass arches and steel beams, string quartet, candlelight, ice sculptures. The crowd looked expensive and polished. She spotted a few familiar faces, board members, artists, CEOs, but she didn't approach anyone. She walked the room like air, unbothered, untouchable, until someone stepped into her path. Soren. He wore black on black, no tie, shirt unbuttoned slightly. He looked tired, lighter, like he'd lost weight, but not in a good way. Kalle didn't speak. He did. You look perfect. She offered a small smile. I usually do. He winced. You didn't tell me you were coming. You weren't invited on my behalf. I still help fund this event. She tilted her head. Then consider this my thank you. He tried to touch her arm. She stepped back. I just want a moment. You had years. People were beginning to glance over. Kalle didn't raise her voice, but she didn't lower it either. Soren looked around, forced a smile. Let's not do this here. Kalle narrowed her eyes. You kissed me the same day you slept with her. But you're worried about optics? I made a mistake. She shook her head. You made a choice. He breathed through his nose. Can we talk? Privately? No. Why not? Because there's nothing left to say. A waiter approached with champagne. Kala took a glass. Soren declined. You were always better at pretending, she said quietly. You think this is pretend? I think you miss power more than you miss me. His jaw clenched. That's not fair. Neither was loving someone who saw me as background. She turned to walk away. But he said something that froze her mid-step. I never loved her. She looked over her shoulder. I didn't leave because you chose her, she said. I left because you forgot who I am. Then she walked away. 10 minutes later, she found herself near the rooftop terrace. Quiet. Only a few guests lingering. The city glittered beneath the glass railing. Kala stepped out, letting the cool wind kiss her arms. A familiar voice spoke from behind her. You handled that with elegance. She turned. Colder. Dark navy tux. Simple cufflinks. Hair slightly windswept. He handed her a glass of still water. I figured you needed something real. She accepted it with a quiet smile. You followed me? She asked. No, I saw him approach. I gave it 5 minutes. Then followed instinct. I appreciate the pause. I didn't want to interrupt a woman delivering a quiet eulogy. She chuckled once. Then, silence. Then she asked, why are you really here? Calder looked at the skyline. Because I fund causes I believe in. She nodded. And me. He looked at her. You're not a cause. They didn't kiss. But they didn't step away from each other either. The wind blew her hair slightly across her face. He brushed it back gently. And for the first time in months, she let someone touch her without flinching. Inside, Soren watched from the far window. Expression unreadable. Hands in his pockets. Surrounded by donors, executives, photographers, and completely alone. The gala ended just after midnight. Kala didn't wait for the room to thin out. She stayed through the final speech, posed for a few quiet photos near the auctioned artwork, and made sure to shake hands with the event director. Not because she wanted to be seen, because she knew people were watching, and she wanted them to see a woman who hadn't broken. Back near the entrance, she paused to gather her coat. Astrid's driver appeared at her side before she even called. Ma'am, he said softly, Miss Astrid asked me to escort you home. She didn't want you out here alone tonight. Kala smiled faintly. Of course she did. She turned her head and caught one final glimpse of Soren. He stood near the ballroom entrance, his tie now loosened, his posture slouched. A man untethered. She didn't wave. She didn't nod. She left. Inside the car, her phone buzzed. A text from Astrid. You looked better than I ever did in Emerald, but don't tell anyone I said that. Kala replied. You said it in writing. I'm framing this. The next morning, her inbox buzzed with press inquiries, most of them subtle. Would Kala Verne be willing to share about her work with the Stoneview Foundation? We'd love to feature your style from last night's gala. You and Calder. Are you collaborating on a future project? She ignored them all. Let curiosity do its work. She didn't need to explain herself anymore. At noon, a delivery arrived at the penthouse. A custom-framed photo, not from her own collection. It was an older print, one she'd shot years ago and donated to a now-defunct community gallery. A black-and-white image of a broken bike left in a flower field. No note. Just a card that read, Even what's left behind can be beautiful. See, she knew who it was from. She sent him a message that night. Thank you for the reminder, he replied instantly. You didn't need it, but I'm glad it found you anyway. The next day, she ran into Soren again. By accident, or so it seemed. She was at the Chicago Modern Art Wing, walking through a private tour event when he appeared beside her during the new artist showcase. She didn't startle. He said nothing at first. Then, you looked strong the other night. I was. I didn't expect that. That's the point. He sighed. I'm trying, Kala. She turned to face him fully. Trying what? To be someone you could respect again. She stared for a long beat. You're trying for you, not for me. I want to fix this. You're trying to fix your image, she said. But I'm not your mirror anymore. That hit. Hard. He didn't respond. She looked past him toward the installation. Go heal. But don't confuse that process with getting me back. Then she walked away. Later that week, Calla joined a planning meeting with a small non-profit focused on transitional housing for women. They wanted her input on rebranding. As they brainstormed ideas, one woman said, "We're looking for something that communicates quiet strength. Not loud activism, but dignity." Everyone looked to Calla. She didn't offer a phrase. She picked up her camera from the table, clicked once. The room stilled. She turned the viewfinder around. It captured the volunteer mid-laugh, the wall of hand-painted thank you cards behind her, the warmth of presence. The director stared. "That's it." Calla nodded. "Let your work speak before your words do." That night, she took down the last framed photo of her and Soren from her bedroom shelf. She didn't break it. She didn't burn it. She mailed it. No return address, no message. Just closure. She spent the evening on her rooftop balcony, camera beside her, blanket around her shoulders, sipping tea. She wasn't waiting on anything anymore. Not an apology, not a gesture, not even peace. She had all three, and none had come from him. The snow hadn't started yet, but the air had that promise. Cold, clean, soft at the edges. Calla zipped her jacket to the top and wrapped her scarf twice. She stood outside a bookstore Calder had mentioned during their last conversation. They'd agreed on coffee. Nothing formal. No expectations. She stepped inside. The scent of old paper, cedar shelves and cinnamon steam met her immediately. He was already seated, corner table near the poetry section, sleeves rolled, a soft grin waiting. "I was hoping you'd come," he said, standing to pull out her chair. She smiled. "I almost didn't." He didn't ask why, didn't press, just nodded and passed her a warm mug. 2 sugars, no lid. Calla smirked. "You pay attention, only to the right things." They talked. Books first, then art, then nothing important at all. She liked that he didn't fill silences, that he waited when she needed a moment. When she asked about his past, he answered plainly. A mother who taught English, a father who disappeared early, a sister raising twins in a different city. He asked about hers. She shared in pieces. Photography school. Her first gallery job. The moment she knew Soren wasn't going to come home on time, and didn't care that he didn't. Calder didn't flinch, didn't pity, he just listened. And that made all the difference. They walked afterward. Sidewalks dusted with salt. Shop windows glowing gold and red for the holiday season. People always talk louder in winter, Calla noted. Calder laughed. Cold demands attention. She glanced up at him. "And you don't?" He shook his head. "Not anymore." She paused at the corner. "That sounds like experience talking. It's survival talking." They crossed when the light changed. Later, back at her building, they stood near the entrance. The city hummed behind them. Soft traffic, distant music, the sound of a life no longer defined by scandal. He didn't lean in. He didn't ask. She didn't offer. But something had shifted. They both felt it. "Thanks for today," she said. "Thanks for showing up." They stood for another 10 seconds. Then she turned to go. At the door, she looked back. "You'll call again?" He smiled. "Only if I want to see you." She nodded once, then went inside. Upstairs, she exhaled deeply, set her keys down, unwrapped her scarf. She didn't rush to check her phone, didn't look for notifications. Instead, she opened her camera roll. Not photos of her, photos of him, unposed, coffee in hand, one foot slightly turned inward, laughing at something off-screen. She hadn't even realized she'd taken them. But there they were, and for the first time in months, she didn't feel like a woman documenting her escape. She felt like a woman noticing her future. The next day, Astrid called. "You sound lighter," she said the moment Calla answered. "It's nothing," Astrid chuckled. "That's what people say when it's starting to become some—" Calla moved to the window. "I didn't tell you about him. You didn't have to." There was a pause. Then Astrid added, "Does he make you feel smaller or bigger?" "Bigger." "Then I approve." Later that week, Calder sent a single message. "Want to help me choose paint colors for a project this weekend? It's painfully domestic." She replied, "As long as it's painfully warm inside." Saturday morning, they met at an old brownstone Calder was helping convert into transitional housing for women. The place had charm: exposed brick, wide windows, creaky floors. Calla arrived in jeans, boots, and a black sweater that swallowed her hands. "You're overdressed," he teased. "You're underprepared." She grabbed a color swatch from the table. Warm ivory, dusty sage, deep navy. "You actually care about these colors?" she asked. "I care about what they'll feel like to the women moving in." She studied him again. "You keep surprising me." He shrugged. "You keep showing up. I call that even." They painted. She got more on her sleeves than the wall. He didn't correct her. He just laughed. Later, they sat on the floor eating takeout, backs against the unpainted wall. She leaned her head back. "This feels safe." He looked at her. "Because it is." The brownstone walls dried slowly. Paint thinner clung to the air, but Calla didn't mind. The scent reminded her of change, not chaos, not crisis. Change she chose. She and Calder sat on the floor with their takeout containers balanced between paint trays and extension poles. The windows were open. The wind was light. They ate in silence for a bit, forks scraping softly against cardboard boxes. Calder reached for a napkin, then paused. "You're not used to this, are you?" Calla glanced up. "What?" No noise, no performance, just quiet company. She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "I used to think stillness meant something was wrong. And now, I think it means I finally have space to hear myself again." He smiled. "That's how I felt after my first real heartbreak." She looked at him. "How long ago?" 4 years. "Do you still talk?" "No, but I thank her often." Silently, Calla raised a brow. "For what?" "For showing me what I never want to feel again." When they cleaned up, Calder walked her to her car. No grand goodbye, just his hand brushing hers when he handed her the keys. She noticed he didn't try to linger. That made her trust him more. That night, Calla sat in bed, photo proofs spread across her duvet. She was curating a new collection, this one more abstract. Less people, more fragments, hands, side profiles, reflections in puddles. She paused on one. A photo of Calder mid-laugh, blurred slightly as if the moment had moved too fast to catch. She added it to the folder marked, "Yes." At 1:12 a.m., her phone lit up. A message from Calder. "I forgot to tell you something." She typed back, "What's that?" "When you're in a room, I stop noticing anyone else." She read it twice. Then again, she didn't respond right away. Instead, she placed the phone screen down on her nightstand and let herself feel it. The next morning, Astrid showed up unannounced. Full-length coat, coffee in hand, no warning. Calla blinked at her from the doorway. "Is something wrong?" Astrid stepped in. "I had a board meeting downtown. Thought I'd stop by." Calla led her to the kitchen. "You never just stop by." Astrid sat, crossed one leg over the other. "He asked about you." Calla didn't have to ask who. "And I told him he should stop asking." Calla opened the fridge. "Did he listen?" "Not really." Calla smiled tightly. "Shocking." Astrid took a slow sip. "He said he saw you with someone at the gala." Calla's body stiffened. Astrid added, "He didn't ask out of jealousy." "Then what?" "Out of fear." "Because he knows what it looks like when a woman moves on without bitterness." Calla leaned against the counter. "I'm not bitter," she said softly. "I know. But I'm not trying to prove anything either. That's what scares him." Later that day, Calla met Calder again, this time in a different kind of room. An empty space he was thinking about leasing for a creative non-profit. Bare floors, brick walls, a skylight above like a cracked window to heaven. "I wanted your opinion on the light," he said, looking up. She walked slowly around the room. took off her coat, stood under the light. "I like it," she said. "It's honest," he replied. She turned to him. "You always talk like that." He smirked. "Only when I mean it." She stepped closer. "And when don't you?" "When I'm afraid it matters too much." Their eyes met. Something shifted. He leaned in, slow, giving her time to stop him. She didn't. Their lips met, not in fire, not in desperation. In recognition, in softness, in earned stillness. When they parted, she kept her forehead against his. "I wasn't sure I was ready," he whispered. "Then we wait. But now you know." She did. She finally knew. This wasn't a rebound. This wasn't distraction. This was the beginning of something that didn't ask her to shrink or perform or prove. This was presence. The first box arrived on a Tuesday, unmarked. No note, no return address. Inside, a stack of photographs. Calla and Soren, years ago. Engagement dinner. Honeymoon on the Amalfi Coast. A blurry snapshot of her asleep on his shoulder in the back of a car. A soft smile on his lips. She stared at the photos for a long time. Then put them back in the box. Didn't cry. Didn't text. Didn't throw them out either. She just left the box by the door. By Friday, another one came. This time, it held a perfume bottle. Her signature scent. The one Soren always said reminded him of morning light. It was unopened. Fresh. Taped to the cap was a handwritten note. "You didn't take this when you left. But it never stopped smelling like you." No signature. But she knew the handwriting. That evening, she got an email from Soren's office. Not from him, from his assistant. Subject line: Foundation Board invitation. Women in Leadership Summit message short and formal. At the request of Mr. Bannock, we are extending a speaking invitation to Calla Verne for the upcoming Women in Leadership event sponsored by the Bannock Foundation. Topic: Resilience and artistic growth. He believes your voice matters now more than ever. She read it 3 times. Closed the laptop. Didn't reply. The next day, Astrid called. "He's trying to play the long game," she said flatly. "He thinks if he weaves you back into his narrative, he'll look evolved." Calla didn't deny it. "He wants to make it seem like the marriage didn't fall apart," Astrid continued. "That it simply matured. He's not used to looking like the one who failed." "No," Astrid said. "He's used to controlling the version of the story that survives." Calla sighed. "I don't want to be his redemption arc." "You're not," Astrid said. "You're the chapter he no longer gets to edit." Later that night, Calder walked her to her apartment after dinner. He noticed the box by the door, said nothing at first. Then, "Do you want me to throw it out?" She shook her head. "No. It's proof." "Of what?" "That I left for the right reason." Calder nodded. "Do you need space?" She looked at him, surprised. "I mean it," he said. "I don't want to be in the middle of something unresolved." "You're not," she said. "He's throwing stones at a house that's already empty." That weekend, Calla visited the gallery for a late-night shoot. She stood in front of a large canvas featuring one of her newer pieces, an abstract silhouette. A woman mid-step, walking off the edge of the frame. She stared at it for a while. Then, she lifted her camera and took a photo of the photo. Later, she captioned it, "Stepping forward doesn't need applause, it just needs direction." She posted it without tagging anyone, but she knew Soren would see it. And he did. Monday morning, another message. This one personal, direct. "You looked radiant at the gala. I'm sorry I made you doubt yourself. I don't expect forgiveness, but I do want your name back on the foundation. We built that together." Calla stared at the message and replied with one line, "We didn't build it together. I carried it while you smiled for the cameras." He didn't reply. She expected that. Silence had always been his exit strategy when truth cornered him. That evening, she hosted a planning dinner at the Brownstone, with Calder and 3 other project leads. Simple food, candles, music low. She laughed more than she expected. At one point, Calder brushed a crumb from her cheek. Everyone noticed. No one teased, because the room was full of people who weren't trying to own each other. only support. Later, as the guests left and Calder lingered to help with plates, he looked at her across the counter. "You don't flinch anymore." Calla looked up. "What?" "When someone's kind to you. You don't brace like it's a trick." She swallowed hard. "It's not bravery," she said. "It's just finally believing I'm not to blame for being hurt." Calder stepped closer. "It still counts as healing." The message came from Briar, not a text, not a comment, a voicemail. The first words were, "Please don't delete this." Calla sat on the edge of her bathtub, phone pressed to her ear, volume low. Briar's voice trembled. "I didn't mean for it to happen. You have to believe that. I thought he was lonely. I don't know what I thought, but I miss you. And I know that doesn't matter now, but I needed you to hear it." Calla listened once, then played it again, not to look for sincerity, just to make sure she felt nothing, and she didn't. She replied with a simple message, "Meet me tomorrow. Noon. The cafe on 12th and Hoyne." No emotion, no threat, just finality. The next day, Briar arrived wearing oversized sunglasses and gilt like a scarf she couldn't take off. Calla was already seated, black turtleneck, hair pulled back, a camera on the table, untouched. Briar sat slowly. "I didn't think you'd come." "I didn't come for you," Calla said. "I came for the version of me that let you so close." Briar's hands shook as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. "You probably hate me." "No," Calla said calmly. "Hate requires energy. I stopped spending mine on you." Briar swallowed. "We only kissed at first. I thought it would end there." Calla raised an eyebrow. "But it didn't." Briar blinked fast. "He said you were growing distant." Calla didn't flinch. "And that made it okay." "No. But I wanted what you had." Calla leaned in. "You had access, not love. There's a difference." Briar said nothing. Calla reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. Inside, a photo, not of her and Soren, of Briar and Calla, years ago, laughing in front of an art fair. Real laughter. Calla slid it across the table. "You lost more than a man," she said. "You lost a mirror that never judged your reflection." Briar's lip trembled. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because one day, when you stop pretending this wasn't a choice, you'll want to remember who you used to be before the lie." She stood. Briar's voice cracked. "Are you happy?" Calla looked down at her. "No," she said softly. "I'm healing. That's better." She left the cafe without turning back. Didn't cry. Didn't run. Didn't wonder what Briar would say or post or spin, because none of it could reach her anymore. Later that night, Calder came by. She didn't tell him about the meeting right away. Instead, she handed him a glass of wine, curled up on the couch, and said, "I said goodbye to someone today." He didn't ask who. He just sat beside her and said, "Was it a clean goodbye?" "As clean as you get when the wound came from someone you once called your sister." He nodded. "And did it help?" "No," she said, "but it didn't hurt." They sat in silence for a long time. Then Calder spoke. "I'm not here to replace pain with affection. I'm just here to hold space where it no longer lives." Calla reached for his hand, held it, and whispered, "Thank you for not making healing feel like a performance. What if the betrayal came from the one who knew your secrets and your smile? Have you ever had to forgive someone without hearing an apology, just to move forward?" Calla didn't seek revenge. She didn't scream in public. She offered a final truth and left in peace. If you believe in walking away without bitterness, in quiet power, and in finding your voice again, then like this video, drop a comment below, share this story with someone who's chosen healing over revenge, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more quiet justice, fierce grace, and stories that stay with you. The Bannock Foundation's quarterly board meeting was always held in the same place. Top floor, frosted glass, panoramic views of the city, long table, cold water pitchers, legal pads untouched. The kind of room where power wore perfume and judgment came dressed in silk. Calla hadn't set foot in that boardroom in nearly a year. But this time, she wasn't there as a wife. She was there as a witness. Astrid had asked her to come. "Just sit in," she said. "You won't need to speak. I need them to see what elegance looks like when it refuses to be erased." Calla arrived 5 minutes early. Always her habit. Hair pulled back, navy sheath dress, no earrings. Her only accessory, presence. She took a seat near the end of the table, closest to the window. No nameplate, no folder, just her. Astrid entered next. Grey cashmere, minimal makeup. A brooch Calla had once admired, gold, shaped like a phoenix wing. The room filled slowly. Executives, donors, legal counsel, then Soren. He arrived alone, no tie, looser than usual, his usual sharp posture slightly wilted. He did a double take when he saw Calla. She didn't blink. Astrid stood. "Let's begin." The agenda was routine: financial reports, donor retention updates, upcoming events. Calla listened, eyes forward, hands still. Then Astrid cleared her throat. "I'm adding a late item to the agenda," she said. "Chair reassignment." Murmurs. A shuffle of papers. Soren stiffened. "What are you talking about?" Astrid didn't look at him. "Effective next month, I'll be stepping down as executive chair. My recommendation, subject to board approval, is that Marlene Huxley step in." Calla watched Soren's jaw clench. "Marlene?" he said. "She's not even full-time. She's competent, respected, and not carrying personal scandals on her shoulders." The air shifted. Someone coughed. Soren laughed, sharp. "You're replacing me by proxy." "You were never in line for my seat," Astrid said. "You assumed proximity meant succession." He leaned forward. "I've built half of what this foundation is." "No," Astrid said coolly. "Calla built the image. You fed off it." Heads turned. Calla didn't move. Soren looked straight at her. She walked away. "And you still haven't," Astrid said. "You're still clinging to a narrative that serves you." A pause. Then she added, "This organization doesn't run on your reputation anymore, and it won't be rebuilt on top of the woman you discarded." Silence. Calla felt her chest tighten, but not with pain. After the vote passed, unanimous, Soren stood. Tight smile, no words. He didn't look at Calla again. He left the room slower than usual. For once, not followed. Later, Astrid joined her near the window. Neither said anything at first. Then Astrid muttered, "He'll learn. Or he won't." Calla turned to her. "And if he doesn't, then he'll fade, like all men who think charisma outlasts consequence." Outside, the sky had turned. Soft grey, heavy clouds. Calla reached for her coat. Astrid touched her shoulder lightly. "You being here mattered more than anything I said." "I didn't do anything." "You didn't have to," Astrid replied. They remembered who held the grace in that marriage. On the drive home, Calla sat in the back of Astrid's car and stared out at the skyline. The same view she used to watch when she thought building a future meant standing beside someone powerful. Now she realized power wasn't borrowed. It was reclaimed, in silence, in presence, in showing up when it would have been easier to vanish. She didn't need to make noise to be heard. She only needed to keep showing up. The final settlement papers sat on her kitchen table for 2 days. Not because she was unsure, but because she wanted to sign them without noise in her chest, no anger in her hands, no hesitation in her breath. She wanted the last thing she did for Soren to be the first thing she did fully for herself. When she finally opened the envelope, the terms were clean. Divided property, separated assets, no alimony, no media release required. He hadn't contested anything, which meant Astrid had made her position clear behind the scenes. Calla didn't smile. She signed in black ink. No flourish, just full stop. Later that morning, she walked to the nearby notary's office on West Jackson. No chauffeur, no lawyer beside her. Just her tote, her ID, and the signed file. She waited like everyone else, nodded politely at the older man, who glanced her way twice, wore her hair tied back, no makeup, wide-legged slacks and a simple grey coat. She didn't need to dress for power anymore. She was power. The notary stamped the final page. "Congratulations," he said, glancing at the document. "Not exactly the right word," she replied softly. He smiled. "Maybe not, but you look done." "I am." She left the office into the cold and let the wind hit her face. Let herself feel what it meant to not owe anyone anything anymore. Not love, not forgiveness, not explanation. That afternoon she stopped by the brownstone. The women from the transitional program were moving in. Boxes everywhere, voices echoing through the halls. Laughter in places where silence used to settle. Calla brought a basket of blankets she'd sourced from a local designer friend. Soft, thick, beautiful in muted tones. One woman, early 40s, tired eyes, soft voice, walked over and said, "We heard you're the one who fought to make this happen." Calla didn't correct her, didn't claim it either. She just said, "You're the reason it was worth doing." Calder arrived with coffee for the volunteers. He wore a navy hoodie, sleeves pushed up, paint still under his nails from a last-minute touch-up. When he saw Calla, his smile warmed. "You came. I said I would." He passed her a cup. "You okay?" She nodded. "Settled everything today. Good? Necessary?" He nodded once. They stood in the doorway for a while, watching a group of women gather around a makeshift kitchen counter, laughing over takeout containers. "This is the kind of place I would have needed back then," one of them said. Calla blinked. "Back when?" she asked gently. "Back when I mistook silence for safety," the woman said, "and a man's attention for protection." Calla reached out, placed a folded blanket in her arms. "You're not alone in that." That night, Calla returned to her penthouse. But she didn't feel above the world anymore. She felt placed, steady, present. She turned on soft jazz, lit one candle, and opened her photo proofs. In the new series, her favorite was a shot of a woman's back, standing in a crowd but facing away, hair in a bun, coat trailing behind her like armor. It had no title yet. Until now. She wrote in pencil at the bottom. She didn't look back. The next morning, she received a letter. Handwritten. No name. Just one line on the back of an old museum pamphlet. "I underestimated you. I won't do it again." She folded it once, tucked it into the fireplace, and lit the match. The gallery was already buzzing when Calla arrived, not with chatter or fanfare, but with movement, quiet, purposeful movement. Curators adjusting lights, assistants hanging placards, framed prints still wrapped in glassine paper. She walked through the main floor slowly. Her name wasn't at the bottom of a flyer. It was at the top. Calla Verne. Stillness in motion. She exhaled. Not from nerves. From acknowledgement. This was hers. Nell found her near the front entrance. Black blazer. Gold chain. Clipboard in hand. "You sure you're ready for this?" she asked. Calla smiled. "I've never been more." Nell grinned. "Then let's give them something real." Each wall in the exhibit held a theme. Disappearance, return, distance, reflection, power. Her favorite hung at the farthest end. A shot of a woman in mid-step, coat open, face turned, hair flying behind her. Not posed, not processed, just captured. It was titled Unfollowed. The room felt quiet near it. Visitors slowed, tilted their heads, stared, and Calla watched them not recognize the woman in the photo, because it wasn't about her face. It was about her motion, about leaving without permission. A reporter from a small arts publication approached her mid-evening. "Miss Verne, your eye for emotional pause is unsettling, in the best way. Where does that come from?" Calla didn't hesitate. "Stillness is where we first hear truth." He smiled. "Are these autobiographical?" "They're universal." He nodded, scribbling something down. "You've never spoken publicly about the divorce. Any comment?" She looked directly at him. "This exhibit is my comment." Calder arrived just past 8 p.m. Dark shirt, open collar, quiet hands. He didn't bring flowers, He brought a folded note in his coat pocket, which he pressed into her palm during a quiet moment. He whispered, "Read it when it's over." She nodded. He walked the gallery like a student, slow, thoughtful, never rushed. When he reached the photo titled Unfollowed, he stopped for a long time. Then he looked back at her and mouthed, "That's you." She nodded once. Near the end of the night, a woman in her 50s approached Calla with red-rimmed eyes. "I don't know you," she said, "but I feel like these photos knew me before I ever arrived." Calla gently touched her arm. "That means more than applause." The woman smiled. "I came alone. Thought I'd regret it." Calla smiled softly. "So did I." For a while, they stood together in silence. Not strangers, just two women who understood leaving quietly. After the last guest left, Calla found Calder waiting by the back hallway. She opened the note he gave her. It read, "You didn't become someone else. You just came back to the woman you were before he convinced you she wasn't enough." Her hands trembled as she folded it back. Not from weakness, from recognition. She stepped into Calder's arms. No need to ask, no need to explain. She rested her head against his chest and whispered, "Thank you for waiting." He answered, "You're worth time." The headline appeared the next morning. CEO Soren Bannock speaks out, "I lost a great woman. That's on me." The interview ran online first. A full-page spread in a major business magazine. Clean suit, dim lighting, hands clasped like pennants. Calla didn't read the whole thing. She didn't have to. She skimmed enough. "She was the backbone of everything I built. I didn't cheat. I got careless. I lost her before anything ever happened. Calla deserves happiness, and I hope one day she finds her way back." There it was. Control disguised as confession. Apology shaped like legacy protection. And a final breadcrumb left in public for her to follow. She shut her laptop. No anger, no heartbreak, just a familiar fatigue. Astrid called before noon. "I saw it. Of course he ran it today," Calla said. "The morning after your exhibit. Typical. Calculated." Astrid exhaled. "Are you going to respond?" "No." "Good. Because I already did." Calla raised an eyebrow. "What? He wanted you to look back. I told him you never needed to." Calla smiled faintly. "You're not subtle." "No, but I'm loyal. Still." The article stirred enough noise. Calls from acquaintances, DMs, comments under her latest gallery photos. Some praising him, some asking if reconciliation was coming, some wondering what she'd say. Calla said nothing. She let the silence thicken. Then came the podcast request, a popular platform hosted by a woman known for spotlighting resilience and reinvention. She'd interviewed authors, athletes, entrepreneurs. Now, she wanted Calla. The email was respectful, direct. Calla read it twice, then called Calder. "Would it be strange if I spoke? Not about the marriage, but about me." Calder didn't hesitate. "You've earned your voice back. Use it. Just don't explain yourself. Share yourself." Calla smiled. "You always know what not to say." The studio was warm, minimal. Glass water bottle on the table, single mic. The host, Anya, greeted Calla like an old friend. Didn't bring up the divorce in the first 5 minutes. Didn't bring it up in the second 5 either. When she finally asked, it was gentle. "Was there a moment you realized it was time to stop fixing it?" Calla looked past the mic for a second, then answered, "Yes, it was when I realized I'd been editing myself to stay lovable, and that's not love. That's performance." Anya nodded slowly. "What did you do next?" "I walked away quietly." A pause. Then Anya asked, "And what do you say to the women who can't yet?" Calla blinked once, thought carefully. "I'd tell them you don't have to explain your pain to leave it behind. You just have to decide it no longer deserves your best years." The episode went live 3 days later. It trended by the end of the week. Clips were shared, quotes reposted. Art blogs picked up her words. Even non-followers reposted snippets of her voice over slow-motion video edits. But Calla didn't track the metrics. She was at the brownstone, installing framed prints in the stairwell for the women moving in. Photos of windows, open doors, empty chairs with sunlight on them, spaces that looked like beginnings. Soren texted one last time. "I heard the podcast. I hope you know. It made me remember the version of you I used to admire." Calla stared at the message, then typed, "That version never left. You just stopped recognizing her." She didn't press send. She deleted it. That night, Calder cooked, not for show, for comfort. They ate barefoot, standing at the kitchen counter, music low. He poured wine. She sipped, slowly. "I listened to the episode," he said softly. She looked at him. "Too heavy?" "No," he replied, "just honest. The kind of honesty that doesn't scream but lingers." She leaned against his shoulder. "That's all I wanted. You did more." She stepped onto the balcony later, barefoot, robe tied loose. The skyline stretched wide before her. No names above her anymore. No shared brand. No forced smile. Just her. And the city. And silence. And it was finally enough. The morning was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels like something's missing. The kind that feels like nothing else needs to happen. Calla stood barefoot in the kitchen, pouring coffee into a wide ceramic mug she bought at a street fair years ago. The kind she used to keep in a back cabinet because it didn't match the set. Now, it was the only one she reached for. Because it felt real, like her. She walked to the living room window. The city didn't look different, but she did. She used to measure progress in titles, gallery reviews, rooms entered on the arm of someone powerful. Now she measured it in mornings like this. Unhurried, unclaimed, unapologetic. She opened her notebook and began writing. Not a list, not a letter, just thoughts. Free. "I didn't leave to be stronger. I left because I was already strong. He just didn't see it anymore. Healing wasn't loud. It was quiet meals, soft blankets, clean floors, unread messages. There is a version of me now that I wish I'd met sooner. But I'm glad I didn't, because the version I used to be taught me how to survive." She closed the notebook. No need to reread it. The words weren't for anyone else. Later that day, she met Astrid for coffee. Different location this time. Somewhere small and forgettable. No luxury backdrop. Just mismatched mugs and thick lemon cake. Astrid stirred her tea. "I ran into a board member this week. Said the podcast made more noise than a press release." Calla smirked. "I wasn't trying to be noise." "Exactly," Astrid said. "That's what made it land." They sipped in silence for a few beats. Then Astrid said, "Soren is stepping down from the city development panel." Calla blinked. "Voluntarily?" "Technically." Calla arched an eyebrow. Astrid added, "Turns out board members don't like when someone repackages their shame as insight." Calla exhaled. "He'll resurface." "He always does," Astrid said. "But not near you." Calla nodded once. "Good." On her walk home, Calla passed the bookstore where she first met Calder for coffee. She stopped, looked through the window. There was a couple seated at the same table, same corner, laughing over a dog-eared paperback. She watched them for a moment, then kept walking. At home, her email held a new message. Subject, artist-in-residence selection, accepted. She sat down slowly, reading the details. 4 weeks. Upstate. Cabins. Forest. Silence. Light. A single line stood out. No cell service. Minimal Wi-Fi. Plenty of sky. She didn't hesitate. She clicked accept. That evening, Calder came by. She didn't tell him about the residency right away. They made dinner together. Simple pasta, roasted vegetables, wine poured from an open bottle on the counter. He watched her more than usual. "You're somewhere else tonight," he said gently. "I got something. Something good?" She nodded. A chance to disappear, but the right kind of disappearing. He leaned against the counter. "You going?" She nodded. "I think I need to." He didn't flinch, didn't blink, just said, "Then go." I'll be here when you get back. She took a long sip of wine, set the glass down, then walked across the room and wrapped her arms around his waist. Not as a thank you, not as a promise, but as a woman who finally knew what it meant to feel safe leaving because no one was holding her hostage with their love. The bag was light. Just the essentials: jeans, notebooks, camera, oversized sweater she only wore when no one was around to see her. There was no rush, no frantic packing, no second-guessing. Calla folded each item slowly. She wasn't running. She was retreating on purpose. Before she left, she had 2 more people to see. The first was Astrid. They met at the penthouse Calla used to live in, the one Astrid had placed her in after everything fell apart. Astrid had kept the lease open, even after Calla moved into her own place. Just in case, she'd said once. Now, the keys were on the kitchen counter. Calla handed them back without ceremony. "No goodbye party?" Astrid asked with a dry smile. Calla shook her head. "You'd hate it." "I would." They stood together in the kitchen, sunlight pooling between them. Astrid picked up a tea mug. "You're not coming back the same." "I don't plan to," Calla said. "Good. Stay gone from the girl who kept shrinking to stay comfortable." Calla smiled. She died quietly. In the room where he kissed me like nothing had changed. Astrid looked at her with something softer than pride. Maybe admiration, maybe relief. Then said, "Go where you're not known. Just don't forget who you are." The second visit was to the brownstone. The women were busy, some repainting rooms, others carrying books upstairs. One planting herbs in mismatched pots on the front steps. Calla helped for a bit. No camera, no clipboard, just her. When she stood to leave, the program director called after her. "Hey, one of the residents made something for you." She handed Calla a folded piece of watercolor paper. Inside, a sketch. Not a perfect one, but clear enough. It was Calla, framed in a window, one arm resting on the sill, looking out but not away. Written underneath, "The woman who didn't break the window." She opened it. Calla swallowed. "Tell her thank you." She said you already did. On her last night in the city, Calder stayed over, not to hold her in place, but to help her let go. They didn't talk about the residency, not in specifics. Just laid on the couch, tangled in quiet, hands in each other's hair, breath steady. At one point, she whispered, "I'm not scared. But I am, still healing." He kissed the side of her neck and said, "So am I." The morning she left, it was raining. The kind of slow, steady rain that blurred windows but didn't interrupt movement. Calder walked her to the car, loaded her bag into the trunk, held her face in his hands like something sacred, not his to keep, but always his to protect. "You don't owe me anything when you come back," he said. "Not a call, not a reason, just your truth." Calla nodded. "You make it easier to leave." He smiled. "Because I'm not the one you're leaving." As the car pulled away, she looked out at the city through the back seat window. She didn't say goodbye. She said nothing, because there was nothing left unsaid. Everything that mattered, she was taking with her. There was no cell signal, no pings, no reminders, no curated life through a glass screen. Just trees, mist, wooden beams that creaked when the wind blew, and the faint crackle of firewood somewhere between settled and catching. Calla stood barefoot on the cabin porch, sweater sleeves pulled over her palms, coffee mug held close. The lake was still. Not flat, just still, like it had nothing to prove. She breathed in deeply, and didn't think about who might be watching, because no one was. And that, finally, was perfect. The cabin was modest. One main room, a loft bedroom, a fireplace that needed coaxing, a desk by a tall window that faced the woods. No art on the walls, not yet. But the light was honest, and she'd take that over luxury any day. She didn't write right away, didn't shoot photos, didn't press herself into productivity. She read old books, ate warm bread, tied her hair in a loose knot, and walked barefoot across cool wooden floors without worrying what the reflection looked like. On day 3, she picked up her camera. not to capture anything, just to feel the weight in her hands again. She stepped outside as the fog lifted, found a deer pausing at the edge of the tree line, and raised the lens. She didn't click the shutter. She just looked, watched the creature blink slowly, turn, then vanish. She lowered the camera and smiled. That afternoon she wrote for the first time. Not for work, not for art, just for herself. He thought silence meant I was empty, but silence is where I fill up. I once mistook love for permission. Now I know it should feel like freedom. On the 5th night, she lit the fireplace without struggling, sat on the rug with a heavy blanket and a pot of tea. The stars were visible through the loft window. So close she felt like she could exhale and move them. She didn't think about Calder, but she didn't not think about him either. She thought about his hands, his restraint, the way he looked at her not like he was waiting, but like he was aware she might leave, and that if she did, he'd still wish her well. She scribbled something in the margin of her notebook. You can miss someone without moving backwards, then closed it, let it sit on the floor, and lay down on the rug. She dreamed she was walking through a gallery again. But this time, all the frames were blank, and she didn't panic. She smiled, because finally she got to decide what filled them. The city looked different after a month of trees and silence. It still moved fast, still flashed with noise and light. But Calla didn't flinch from it now. She moved through it slowly, like someone who didn't need to catch up, someone who brought her peace back with her. Calder was already waiting outside her building. He leaned against the brick with his hands in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the street until they landed on her. And when they did, he didn't rush forward. He smiled, soft, certain, like he'd been standing there not to reclaim something, but to honor the fact that she chose to come back. They didn't speak right away. She stopped a few steps in front of him, pulling the strap of her bag higher on her shoulder. You look like yourself, he said. I feel like myself, she replied. That's what I was waiting on. She stepped forward, reached for his hand, held it. Did I miss anything? She asked. He shook his head. Only the things that waited. Inside, the apartment was the same, but the woman walking into it wasn't. She didn't unpack immediately. She showered, let the water fall on her without urgency. She made tea, then walked into the living room and found Calder waiting by the window. The skyline was lit behind him, soft and distant, no longer something to chase. Still your favorite view? He asked. Calla stepped beside him. No, she said. Then turned to him fully. You are. They didn't kiss right away. They stood there, inches apart, heat humming between them. Then she reached up, placed her hand behind his neck, and kissed him. Slow, certain, not rushed, not hesitant, and not to forget the past, but to begin again, with someone who never asked her to shrink in order to be loved. Later, as they lay on the couch, wrapped in quiet and shared breath, Calder whispered, You don't owe me a single promise. Calla rested her head against his chest. I'm not here to promise, she said. I'm here to live. He kissed her forehead. Then let's begin there. If you believe in quiet justice, in walking away without applause, in love that makes space instead of taking it, then subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories. Leave a comment for the woman who left without screaming and came back stronger without permission. And remember, you don't need to be loud to be powerful. You only need to be clear.